What's up, everyone, and happy Monday. The market was pretty green today as a lot of stocks across the entire market moved to the upside, and there was basically only one major stock that ended in the red today, and that was Tesla. In today's video, we have a lot to talk about related to Tesla, some great predictions and setups for tomorrow, and of course, the giant earnings and events for this week. It is going to be a very exciting week. I hope all you guys are ready because there's a lot of action coming our way. But Tom, let's get right into today's episode.
Yeah, today was pretty insane. We got a lot of movement to the upside. Look at NVIDIA here. It had a nice pop and open. Even end of day, had a nice run up. We go over and we look at the SPY. It was actually bullish all morning. Even in pre-market, we opened up really high. And then, there was a midday dip. I understand, a lot of people will say, well, Tom, it wasn't that bullish. But that end of day push to the upside was amazing. And people were hyping that up in Discord like no tomorrow. And going over to the heat map, it was a really, really green day. I mean, look at all these fantastic stocks running to the upside. But like you hinted at, Mike, there was a one that was a big standout on the chart. It's on the right side. It is Tessie or Tesla. Man, TSLA took a huge hit today. Let's look at it on the chart. Let's get that percentage exactly here. So it moved down 4.79%. At one point, it was around even 5%. So that is a big drop to the downside by them, Mike. And there was some pretty big news as of why they dropped. Panasonic had some news. Then there was even a semiconductor company that caused them to fall a little bit too.
Yeah, basically Tesla and a lot of other electric vehicle companies struggled today as these, battery producers basically gave some weak guidance and said that they've been slowing production. And, when you have battery producers that, produce the batteries for these EVs saying, hey, things are slowing down and we're not necessarily expecting the greatest things in the short-term future, you can kind of put the pieces together and say, you know what, maybe some of these EV companies aren't in the, let's say the perfect spot right now, right? And people kind of sold off a Tesla here with that news, and Tesla's actually now below the $200 level, and, sellers definitely came in pretty hard today because not only is Tesla below 200, not only is it down about 5%, but this all happened on a day where basically most other stocks in the market were green, and green in a pretty strong way.
Exactly. It was a big difference there, and that news was really rough. And we saw the other EV companies, like you mentioned, falling off too. Like, look at Rivian. They took a pretty big dip. Lucid was down too. Actually, Lucid ended up closing green, but it was down for most of the day. I guess they came back with that end-of-day pop, but it was just a really bad day overall for all those. You could even say solar companies, Mike, like even Enphase. And FSLR had really bad days. It was like anything clean energy or in that space. But obviously that news with Tesla is terrible. Just anything that shows that the outlook is getting worse is bad, right? Like if they're expecting less cars to be sold, that's rough. And now we have other companies expecting Tesla to sell less cars. I mean, even Panasonic is like, wow, guys, this demand is getting rough.
Yeah, so keep a close eye on Tesla going forward. It's definitely moving with some power. But Tom, we have a giant earnings week ahead of us. Let's get right into that schedule because it is one action-packed week. For tomorrow, we have AMD after close. We have Pfizer and Caterpillar before market open. And, looking at the rest of the week, we have a huge lineup, especially on Thursday.
Yeah, we do. Thursday is going to be the biggest day of the week for sure. So kind of working backwards here. Apple, Block, DraftKings on Thursday. And one that was kind of mixed in there is Starbucks and after hours with Coinbase. I mean, there are so many reporting in after hours Thursday. Like within this line that I'm drawing right now, you guys need to mark these ones down. And even my baby DraftKings is reporting Thursday too. Palantir before open, Shopify. Wednesday we have PayPal, Roku, Qualcomm, Airbnb, Etsy even mixed in. Kraft Heinz, ketchup for all the ketchup players. I'm just kidding. I know nobody plays that stock besides me and Cornish. Me and Cornish in the Discord. But NCLH, there's a bunch of stocks. And tomorrow's going to be great too. AMD is a big player, and they're actually sitting right around $100 on their chart right now. So that'll be a pretty fun stock to see if, hey, are we going to get that $100 test, or are we going to get that big sell-off coming to the downside?
Yep. And then also, besides earnings, we have Jerome Powell coming back this week with an interest rate decision on Wednesday, at 2 p.m. Eastern time. And then he has his speech at 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. So definitely be on the lookout for that, because that is where even more volatility will come into play. And depending on what Jerome Powell says and what he actually does with these interest rates, can have a bigger impact on the market than almost anything else. So keep a very close eye on that as well. But Tom, what's very interesting that I saw today was it has to do with VIX options volume. So we all know that people resort to the VIX, and the VIX skyrockets when people are scared and when the market is tanking down in a major way. Right now, we are seeing VIX have its largest monthly options volume than we've seen since the COVID crash of 2020. This is very telling because, normally people only play VIX when they think the market's about to tank down. And about 60% of the recent volume has been call options. So, definitely keep a close eye on this going forward. When we see leading indicators like this, it directly shows that people are kind of bracing for impact.
Yeah, and we've talked about a lot of different reasons why the market or why people might be expecting things like this. We look at credit card delinquencies, bankruptcy rates. Now we see these interest rates and yields getting so high. It's like there's so much pressure on that economy. And now we have the war with Israel going on, with Palestine. It's like, geez, can it get any worse? And China might say, well, yes, it can if they end up doing something crazy. But, it's just crazy out there with the VIX. And, the VIX is a really big indicator. People look at it all the time. If we don't usually check on it too much, but if we go back out to that daily chart, Mike, we're back up into that 1920 area that we thought we might not even get to. VIX was down around 13. A lot of people their heads were exploding when it was down there. But with all this fear, it's starting to creep back up. And if the market keeps dropping, VIX will grow even higher.
Exactly. So, of course, the VIX shoots up when the market's tanking, but looking at the market itself right now, ticker symbol SPY. Tom, the market had a pretty solid day today, but, it's pretty safe to say that it's not in the clear just yet. In terms of key levels for support and resistance, what are you seeing, and what should we look out for?
Yeah, so there's actually a lot of levels here on the SPY. I took a few off my charts today, but I'm going to add some on here live. So there was a big low recently right around 420 and 419. That level is very, very crucial here as SPY starts to run up. We're going to need to watch that 418 to 420 area. If we go into a 15-minute chart, you can see this a little bit more defined here. So I have these lines drawn out. You can see how 420, there was a few hits right off of that level, and then we got pretty key bounces back up, right? Once we finally broke under 420, we started running down. So we're going to use those areas as resistance. 419 to 420. Tomorrow we'll be on watch very, very closely. I'll even be watching 418, which was the low in pre-market here on Monday, October 23rd. If we hit that, then I'll start to look at 420 after we break 418. But those are some huge resistances coming up. I am watching 417, but that's not quite as defined as the others. For support, I'm actually really happy that the SPY closed high. It closed up above 414.75, which was great, and it's holding right around 415. So if we can hold this area that I'm marking into tomorrow, I would be really happy with the SPY, and that might give us that good indication early on, hey, it's going to be another bullish day. So hopefully we get those bulls coming in, Mike, and I'll say this, I would much rather get a nice breakout back to the upside than fall back down to this choppy range and just go sideways.
Exactly. So good stuff there, and let's get right into some setups and predictions for tomorrow. A stock I'm watching very closely is a stock that I've been talking about a little bit too much lately, and that is ticker symbol CHWY. It had a pretty solid day today, up around 3%. This is a stock I own for the long term, but it's also presenting short-term opportunities to the upside. It is very oversold. It is bouncing off of a huge support right around, you could say, $16 a share. Right now, I think we're seeing a good amount of short covering as well as bulls stepping in, and it's a stock that I think has a great risk reward set up to the upside right now, depending how close you want to set your stop loss, whether it's at, you could say $18 a share or even $16.50 a share. The upside potential on this one could be anywhere up to $20 to 22 or even higher, depending on how long you want to hold. But I like it, and I'm watching it closely.
Man, Mike, when I go to a daily chart, it's like hard to even chart Chewy in a way that people can see it with how much it's fallen down. But I love it down here. It's looking good. It's starting to come back up very well. And I do like that $20 resistance coming up. So I'll keep it on watch. And once again, it had another good day after you talked about it yesterday. So definitely keeping it on the radar. With my first play, I'm going with Microsoft today. I usually don't go with these bigger stocks like Microsoft or Apple or something like that, but I really like this setup today. It had a nice run up into close, holding up around that high of day today. So if we see that breakout like above 338.50 to 339, I'll be watching that 340 push or even higher. So keep your eyes on Microsoft. They should follow the market up too if the SPY runs.
Great stuff. Another one I'm watching pretty closely is Old Faithful GLD. So GLD has been on a great run lately. People are resorting to this for safety right now, whether it be the wars around the world, whether it just be the current market craziness, and just the overall economic setup. So I really like this as kind of a stock / play that just moves independently, and whether the market's up or down, GLD just does its own thing, and I think that's great in this market environment, so I'm continuing to watch it to the upside.
Yeah, I love it. It might consolidate here and there, but lately it's been on a great run, and I would think that, just imagine if something starts popping off in the Middle East again, or something gets worse, or imagine like Powell takes the market Wednesday, like GLD will start to look fantastic if Powell does something. So I love it here, Mike. It's had a lot of momentum lately. With my last play, I'm going with Disney. Disney's had a great support bounce lately. I've been loving it. It's been bouncing off of $80, and this support is huge. Like if we go to a daily chart, we can go back to the COVID low. That was the perfect low right here on Disney. And then the low from 2014, or at least the low in the middle of 2014, was also right on that support. So I'm watching Disney for another bounce back up. Today was kind of the start of that. We had a good green candle, and I'll watch it for some good continuations. It's kind of like Chewy to me, or Square, or something like that, where it's just really overextended, and it's starting to get those buyers coming back in finally.
Yeah, I mean, it's at a huge support level, and I think playing setups like this right now is like the best way to go because, of course, there are some stocks out there that are very oversold, like whether it's Disney or Chewy or PayPal or something like that. But there's other stocks out there, like a lot of these big tech stocks, that are not as oversold. And, if the market does start to dump, the stocks that are already down so much, they can only fall so much more. Where some of the other stocks that are a lot closer to highs have a lot more what we'll call dump potential. So I definitely like where you're going there, Tom, and I'll keep a close eye on it as well. But with that being said, let's get right into the momentum plays for tomorrow. And with the first one, we have Tesla to the downside.
TSLA, what a terrible move today. It had to be called out here in the momentum plays. If they get under 195, look at puts. Now, I remember 195 has been huge on Tesla for a while. So even like about a year to 2 years ago, whenever Tesla was at 195, I remember talking about it. So if they break under 195, look at those puts.
All right, with the next one, we have JP Morgan to the upside.
Yeah, these banks really surprised me today. I was happy to see that good movement. It had a small breakout intraday as well. If they break that high of day at 138 even, then look at calls.
All right, and now with the last one, we have NVIDIA for both directions.
NVDA, yeah, this is a fun one today. Pretty choppy, but it had some good opportunities. Now, if it goes up above 415 intraday, go ahead and look at calls. I like that as a good upside level. If they fall back under 409.50, then look at puts. I like that just under that 410 support.
All right, so we have the downside level for puts, the upside level for calls, and that is for NVIDIA. Don't forget about the upside level with JP Morgan, and then the downside level for Tesla. But it's now about that time for today's big money $1.6 million trade of the day. And Tom, we talked about Tesla quite a bit, but it's now time to talk about a different EV company, and that is Rivian, the so-called Tesla killer. Rivian, it didn't do like horrible today, but it also struggled. But basically today, someone dumped $1.6 million into the Rivian 16 strike call options that expire on November 17th of 2023. Rivian is pretty oversold in the short term. It is at a pretty close support level around $15.50 a share. Looking at Rivian, these options are slightly out of the money. They have a little bit less than a month worth of time, which makes the play high risk, high reward. Overall, it's not a bad setup. It's just high risk, high reward. So if you can handle the heat, then by all means, go for it. But if you don't have that high appetite for risk, then maybe wait for the next one.
Yeah, and I mean, I like the support that you're talking about. It's just like, right, like, will this end up holding up here? Like, the way some of these stocks is falling down is really crazy in the short term, especially the EV sector with Tesla today. So I'll keep this support on watch. If we start to notice maybe a green candle or two, then I might hop into this. But I like it. It's kind of like a shorter term type of play. It's not super long term or anything like that. It's dated pretty close, and it's the 16 call, so it will be a risky one. And I like it because you can keep that risk reward on this one pretty tight, right? Like, you could probably keep a good stop loss around like 15.25, or you can go to the options chain, obviously, and then eye up the option maybe under the low of day today, put your stop loss there, and then, look at those highs as maybe some targets from recent. But I really like the setup there with that support. It gives you a lot of opportunity with that risk reward.
Great stuff. But yeah, I mean, with everything being said, Tom, we have, a lot of crazy price action right now. We have huge earnings. We have Powell speaking on Wednesday. We have the market at a crucial level. And, we're in for a lot of action. So I think it'll be a very exciting week. Today was mostly bullish, and that's totally fine. When we have periods of what we'll call heightened volatility, you see really big green days sometimes, but you also see some pretty violent red days. And that's just kind of the market environment that we are now in, because the market environment that we're in right now is a lot different than the market environment that we were in 3 months ago, and that's a lot different than what we were in, you could say, 6 months ago, right? The market's always changing, and it's all about adapting. That's how you survive in this game over the long term. Tom, do you have any input or thoughts or anything going into tomorrow?
Yeah, I think that tomorrow we might see a continuation out of this. It's not like a for sure thing that we're going to be going up again tomorrow, but with how much selling pressure that we've seen lately, especially on the SPY and on the overall market, I just wouldn't be surprised if maybe we chopped up towards 418 to 420, which are those big resistances I laid out earlier for us. So I'll be watching for the SPY to possibly do that. I think it'll start bouncing off this support here around 414.75 quite a bit. As long as that holds, we should be pretty good to the upside. So make sure you also keep your eyes on those bigger stocks out there like Microsoft, Nvidia, other stocks like that ran up today. It was pretty good for a lot of these stocks, especially stocks like Microsoft. Like, look at that good run up into the end of day. Very strong, much unlike Tesla, though. And we got to keep Tesla on watch, too, to the downside. That 200 break was pretty sad to see today. I feel bad for the Tesla shareholders on this one.
Ever since Tesla reported earnings, it has been pretty brutal. And that, brings me into, this week's earnings, with huge companies like Apple and DraftKings and Shopify and Palantir and AMD and PayPal. It's like, these earnings reports can either be the saving grace for some of these companies, like let's say PayPal, and, that can turn things around. But, for some of these other companies, like let's say Apple or AMD, if they come in bad, that can kind of be like the nail in the coffin.
It really could, and that nail in the coffin would be terrible here on some of those stocks. Like you mentioned, Disney's a stock that's down around support, right? It's very low. If we go to something like Apple, it was running up into highs recently. So if we go to a daily chart, I mean, there could be more sell-off coming in on something like Apple. Like, if this big support around 167 to 170 breaks, that would be terrible. And what have we heard all year from Apple is bad news about their phone sales in China and production problems, China not wanting to give their government workers iPhones. It's been a rough year for Apple over there in China.
No doubt. Well, thank you guys so much for watching today's video. If you're new to the channel and you want to see our content more often, make sure to subscribe. In every single video, we cover predictions, important news, earnings, charts you won't find anywhere else, and a bunch of great other, we'll call stuff. So make sure to subscribe. You'll hear from us more often. And last but not least, I want to give a giant shout out to today's Discord member of the day, PV. You've been in the chat for over 2 years now, and your activity lately has been awesome. So definitely make sure to keep it up, and let's have an amazing week in the markets.